Hello everyone, it's Lennon. Welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk about the S.T.A.R.T model. Okay, this is something fairly new to me as I saw the picture on Pinterest. I'll leave the link below. Okay, and it had some religious associations, I guess you could say. And it got me to thinking that you can use this model, the S.T.A.R.T model, to form a spirituality practice. For those of us that may not be religious, but may be spiritual, I don't know. When I love acronyms because it really gets me to think, okay? A lot of the things that I use in my spirituality practices have sets. Like I use the scientific method. I use 5 forms of certain workings that I do in my spiritual practice. Most of them are their sets. And using acronyms like the SMART system when thinking about goals, okay, sustainable goals, maintainable goals, attainable goals. When using the SMART acronym, it's pretty cool because it keeps you on track. And I think the S.T.A.R.T method, even though it may have started out having a religious, even possibly proofing the acronym with Bible verses, is here nor there. We can adapt it. We're going to keep the same words though. We're going to keep the same words that this picture, I'll leave it here, says for each of the S.T.A.R.T. Okay, we're going to keep those. But I thought that for anyone that is either coming out of religion or doesn't really want a cultural religious experience in terms of spirituality, but they don't know where to start, this could be where they start. So I thought that this would be really good, really cool and adaptable. It's adaptable. So, and it could be for anything, any kind of spiritual practice you want. At first, I thought that the S.T.A.R.T model could just be about deity work, like when we're talking in relation to a god. But then when we're like really thinking it through, I thought, no, it doesn't have to be. So for anyone that's wanting a spiritual practice, I think it would be kind of cool to start with the S.T.A.R.T acronym. The S.T.A.R.T model, okay? All credit goes to whoever came up with this first. I did not. Thank you. Now, the S.T.A.R.T model starts with S, which is study. I like that. I like that study is number 1, first of all. But it doesn't have to be. It can be study in the form of whatever you are passionate about in terms of spirituality, okay? If it doesn't have a nucleus yet, it's okay. But figuring out your bliss, figuring out what you're already passionate, already interested in terms of spiritual mindsets. Some of us, like me, I research a lot of philosophy, spiritual motivation, spiritually minded philosophies, spiritually minded modalities. I study a lot of those. And studying becomes crucial, but it doesn't have to be like school. If you didn't like school, okay? I liked school. I actually like to study. It's like one of my passions in life is to study, to have books and reference materials out with notebooks and notes, and I love writing notes. So studying has just been one of those things that I've loved to do my entire life, weirdly enough. But studying doesn't have to be as crazy as that. You're not getting graded on your studying, and there's not going to be like this grand test at the end of your study period where you're going to be asked a lot of, questions about what you studied about. It's just for your own knowledge. It's just for your own sake. And for spirituality purposes, I thought studying is really cool because you can go as deep as you want to with it. You don't have to be like me with a whole bunch of books and notebooks out. You could just be reading up on something, and preferably, okay, because I know school doesn't really do this. It doesn't really lend itself to impassioned study all the time. Sometimes you must study things that you're not really interested in. But for the purposes of spirituality, I think that it's kind of crucial if you want to study or use study in terms of this S.T.A.R.T model. Study what you already like. Study what you already have questions about. Study what you already have doubts about. Study the differences between, like if you're coming from a religion and are thinking about this one, if you're thinking about conversion, if you're thinking about whatever, if you're thinking about having a spirituality, what do you want to start with? And then what we're trying to do with the START model, in my opinion, is form that nucleus that sits in the middle that can generate all kinds of stuff around it, and pull that stuff in. And it starts with study. It starts with studying what you're already going to be interested in. What are the doubts about this? What are the conversions about this? What is the meat and potatoes behind certain things? When forming opinions about certain things, spiritually speaking. And this really can go to all forms of morality or values, I would say. But I'm really trying to stick with the spirituality mindset here. That when you're spiritually minded, what generated that curiosity? Okay, what are you curious about naturally? Okay, what is the curiosity going to take? Where's the curiosity going to take you? And it's going to take you into things and down rabbit holes through study. So as the first one, that's really powerful to me. The next one is T, which is for talk. Okay. You see a lot of Pinterest posts and things like that, motivational, affirmation like things that say this, but that prayer in and of itself, the act, okay, possibly even without a religious connotation, could be a form, or is a form of talking. You're talking to something, someone, the nature of the existence. You're talking to the universe. You're talking to a deity. You're talking to yourself, your inner self, your inner child. Like, it doesn't matter. Talking is crucial, because having conversations with things, with nouns, okay, in any kind of sense of the word, even spiritually speaking, probably in this context, more so spiritually speaking, talking and conversing and having this communion, it opens us up for answers, right? But talking is only one form of it. Talking is probably one form of it for me, because you see, like I said, the other end of that Pinterest post affirmation thing that we see is prayer is talking, meditating is listening. There's a form of mindfulness meditation that comes with prayer. They're almost linked. It's like they're two sides of the same coin. When you pray, you can pray and pour your heart out spiritually, existentially. You can pour your heart out in this spiritual way to whomever or whatever you want to, spirits and ancestors, gods and goddesses, and your houseplants. Okay, talking to these things, forming these connections, and conversing with these things. There may come a time where you feel like it's only one-sided, right? That's because you haven't flipped the coin over. And meditating, even if you don't have a meditation practice, there are ways to have a mindfulness meditation practice, which is just being mindful. And that just means, like, for instance, you're opening yourself up for the listening portion of that. Because that was one thing growing up religious that I never understood, is that praying seems to just be like, I'm spewing all my problems out to this deity. And where did the listening come? No one ever talked about the listening. No one ever talked, well, were your prayers answered? Did he answer? What did he say? And it wasn't like that. It's more so that there's a coin and there's two sides of it. You can talk, and you must talk, and you must converse, and you must open the lines of communication, spiritually speaking. But then also there has to be another side of the coin, which is listening. You have to listen for that. And usually listening for me comes in the form of signs and symbols. We're looking for synchronicities. We're looking for the way, serendipitous ways in which that made sense. We're opening ourselves up for that. And that's what communion is. It's conversation. Talking is a conversation. Two-sided. So, so that was number 2, was talk. Talk to something. Study and then talk to it. Study and then talk about it. Study and then talk and then listen. And the next one is A, which is adore. Okay. Now this is, like the picture that I showed earlier, adore is kind of like this reverence, idolization almost. But again, idolization, in my opinion, has another side of the coin. If once you idolize something, you automatically must demonize something else that it's linked to, especially spiritual speaking. A lot of spiritualities and religions have a dualism, and it's the classic good versus evil, okay? And for me, spirituality is dualism, but then it's a nothingism, okay? It's an allism. There's a light, and then there's a darkness, and then there's things in between, and then there's things outside of those things. And they're all linked on a web, is what I think. It doesn't matter what I think, though. The adore part is about reverence. And when you study something and you're following your curiosity, following what you're interested in, passionate about, and following your bliss, okay, then you want to talk about it. You want to converse with others. You want to talk to friends. You want to talk to spouses. You want to talk to parents about your mindsets, your shifting mindsets, your paradigm shifting. And you're even talking to your houseplants more, the spirits of your genus loci, the spirits of place more, talking to your ancestors more, past, present, and future selves of yours, deities of yours, gods and goddesses that you may worship, right? But you're studying these beings, and then you're communing with these beings. You're having a conversation, which is talking and listening. And then you must adore them in ways. Now, this can be through sacrifices, offerings, what have you. But adoring is an idolization portion of spirituality. What, out of all that you've studied and talked to, did you fall in love with? Was it a deity? Was it a deity? Was it a spirit? Was it a bank of spirits? Did you form your own deity? Did you make nice with the parts of yourself that are linked all together within you, all the archetypes that you've embodied? Whatever you've fallen in love with, find ways to adore that. Self-love, right? Self-love is a huge practice. Self-love, self-adoration. There's forms you can do that with. There's ways you can do that with yourself and with other beings, deities, universes. Just the possibilities are endless. Once you've studied and once you start the lines of communication, you will fall in love with stuff. You'll fall in love with things down the path, the spiritual path. Find ways to keep the adoration alive. It's kind of like a two-way street there too. Give and take. Sacrifice and offer. Take away, give. And it's like the nature of an actual relationship. The next one is R, and that's respond, okay? When we study, and then we talk. We're talking and listening. We're praying and meditating, okay? Then we adore it. We fall in love with something. We're adoring it. We're idolizing it. We're giving it things. We're offering it things. We're sacrificing certain things to better ourselves, right? Maybe possibly getting rid of a bad habit for the awakening of a soul, okay? The soul that lives in us, right? There comes a time where we must respond to what we're listening to. There's an act here, okay? For me, like all of what we've done can all happen in here. Can all happen in here. But there may come a time in your spiritual practice that you hit walls. You hit self-doubt. You are hit with a symbol or a sign that you didn't listen to. And maybe you did listen to it, but you didn't turn that around and do something about that. So what if it was a sign or a symbol that told you to do something, a dream that was like, you know what, this dream was about this, and I really feel that I need to do this, but I don't want to. Okay, it's comfort zone syndrome. But when that links up, we're not responding. We're not responding to what we see. When we're listening and getting advice from the universe, getting advice from whoever we're talking to about these spiritual things, when are we responding? When are we acting upon this for the greater good? When are we responding for self, responding for community, responding for those in need, responding in direct answer to the problems we've already been posing to the spiritual beings that we're communing with and having relationships with. We need to have a way to act upon ourselves, act in ways where we're benefiting ourselves. The acts of service, the love languages, I'll say the love languages that we offer are a way that we can respond. How are we responding to what we adore? I think that love languages plugged here in the adore category is pretty cool. We could plug those in. And then some of us even use more than the 5 that there are. We might use a configuration of multiple, right? So knowing how you respond in your love languages, how you want to be responded to, I think is really important. And then the last one is thank. This is gratitude. Thank you. So we've studied what we're passionate about, studying what we're spiritually curious about. And then we talk about it. We talk about it with people. We talk about it with friends. Then we open lines of communication outwardly to spirits and deities, and we're praying and we're meditating, okay? And we're talking and listening. And then we're forming love connections with these things, forming love connections with the oneness of the universe and the uniqueness of self, and how it's all linked on the web of life. And when we do that, when we fall in love with self and we fall in love with other things that we may have come across on this path, on our path, we respond in a way when we make decisions, actionable decisions that benefit, that will catapult us into a better world for ourselves, children, neighbors, communities, the world at large, the earth, I'll say at large too. There comes a time when what has been given, what we do have, there comes a time where we must thank and be grateful for it. I think that's incredibly powerful to have a gratitude practice within side spirituality, because it keeps us grounded with the ways of the universe. It keeps us grounded to not always thinking in a capitalist or self-preserving mode of we need this, but we can be thankful for what we do have. So thank is the last one. And I think all 5 are super cool and super important. And you can use this model to start a spiritual practice or to jumpstart one that you already have. Say you've become complacent in some of your spiritual practices. You can use this to come jumpstart a new way of approaching your spiritual practice. I think that would be really cool to use this. Again, I can't take credit for this model because it came out of a Christian association, which is fine, but using it in terms of spirituality in a general sense really awakens us to what these words mean. I think that if you use anyone from any spiritual background, if they study what they're passionate about, study it in a way that opens you up for possibility. Studying opens you up to question things, to know more patterns, especially historical. If there are historical connotations, there are historical rites and things that you look up. There may be patterns, historical patterns that you need to pay attention to later on. Talking opens us up for communion. We're talking and listening. Talking in general gets us to have barriers and boundaries around conversations. What are we willing to talk about? What are we not? I think that forms the basis of any relationship, is good communication. And then we're adoring things. Don't be afraid to fall in love with certain things. If we're already curious and impassioned about the things that we're going to talk about and study, we can allow that to get to a love state. We can allow that to get to a state where we're willing to give stuff up and sacrifice or offer what we do have, what we're grateful for already. I think that, I mean, all of these are really good. And we need to respond. We need to act accordingly. Act from a place of knowing, from a place of our moral compass, figuring out what our moral compass is, the way it points, and then act from that. That's it. And then last is be grateful for it. Using so many, like thinking about this and this model, it just makes me think of spiritual practice being this grand, people think it's such a grand thing. When we scale it down to its bare essentials, this is all it is, these 5 things. So how are you, or how have you started a spiritual practice? Did you use one of these? I would be interested to know. If you find this kind of, these 5 things helpful in terms of having a spiritual practice in general, I would love for you to tell us below. So okay. I hope you liked. I hope this was fun and informative. I hope you're having a great day. Let me know what you think below. Much love.